Bojo, Noaben, Nogijit, Nogijuk, Quinoa. My husband was not able to broadcast this morning. He has a sore throat. He's getting over a summer cold, and being online last night, kind of twice yesterday, actually, he was online. So his voice is very sore. So I am here to talk about how to use our Patreon site. First, I want to talk a little bit about what Patreon is. It is a website that was created to support artists and educators and developers of different videos and writings. It helps writers, musicians, and other people who are involved in creative projects. And basically, what they do is they provide an online platform, and we provide the creative material, and then they help us to do the accounting and draw in funding from patrons based on the old idea that artists used to have patrons who would support them so that the artist could be free to do art. This is something that happened in Europe. Um, Shakespeare had patrons, Michelangelo had patrons, other famous artists had patrons, and these patrons kept them going so that they could continue to create beautiful works of art. Musicians had patrons. That's how many symphonies became well known and established because patrons were supporting the arts. So when you join Patreon, you are becoming a patron and you are supporting the arts and you are supporting the creative process and you are supporting the educational process. A lot of people don't realize how much work goes into creating lesson plans and creating educational materials. These things don't just appear overnight. There's a lot of planning that goes into them, a lot of scripting that goes into them. And then finally, the finished product, which is so nice and handy to have. When my husband first started teaching this language in a formal setting in schools, there were no materials. All that was in existence was recordings and compilations and fluent elders who knew what they were talking about. And so all of this had to be collected, synthesized, processed into lesson plans. And from that process comes the manuals that my husband has produced and other language materials that are here and there. And this process took time, and a lot of people spent a lot of time working on those projects. So, my husband is now going to be 79 this year, and he has been experiencing some health problems. He's recently recovering from pulmonary embolisms, which nearly took his life back in April. And so we have realized very quickly and very suddenly what a treasured resource he is. And so we decided to start this Patreon site so that he could be supported in the creative processes that he goes through because he's got a lot of language inside of his head. He's a walking, talking library. And when an elder dies, a library burns down. So he wants to be able to create and put some of that resource that's in his head into a forum and a project where it can be multiplied and magnified so that many people can use it and not just one person who's sitting here listening to him, but hundreds and even thousands of people will be able to hear these things. And even after he's long gone, this archive will remain. So he wanted to create an archive of material that he has created, and also provide a place for him to jump on the screen live and just shout out some thoughts to people. This is what's going on in my head today. And these are words that I'm remembering today. And these are maybe words that other people have never heard before because my husband was raised by his grandparents who were elders in their community and well versed in their traditional ways. And so he knows a lot of traditional words that other people don't know. So that's what Patreon is for. That's what your dollars would be supporting if you join this site. And that's why we have asked for a minimum of $5 a month to join this site. Those dollars go toward the creative process, they go toward the equipment. The camera that I'm looking at right now was not free. The microphone that I'm using here was not free. The software that we're using to create this video is not free. All of this has a cost to it. So all of those dollars go toward that. We are We have an archival site, and an archival site is a place where data is stored for reference, and in this case, language material on many different kinds of subjects, on history, on culture, on verbs and nouns, pronunciation, immersion lessons, vocabulary lessons, pronunciation helps, and just the how to of how to put this together are all stored on the site. And we have over 100 posts now, and so now we are going back through and categorizing them before this gets out of hand. We want to make sure that we have tags on these things, so if you just want pronunciation helps, you can click that tag, and we are working on that process now, and we should have that complete within a week. These materials can be referenced from time to time. As patrons, you have every right to peruse anything that we put up. We do ask, though, that you do not download things without permission. If something catches your fancy and it's something that you want to use in a language class that you're doing, or you want to use it in your home or with your family, just ask us, just so that we know where it's going and who's got it. We're not stingy. If we were stingy, we wouldn't have this site. My husband has never been stingy. He's always been a giving person, and that's inherent in the Anishinaabe culture, is to give and to give and to give. But that giving should always be respected. So please don't just take. Come and ask him first, and give him the honor of letting him give it to you. Please feel free to ask questions. There are places on the site to ask questions in the comment section. There is also a private messaging feature. You can send my husband a private message if it's something you don't want public. Also on the page, there is a tab for community. And in the community section, any patron can make a post. So if you have something on your mind, or if you have a project that you are working on, or if you just want to give a line of support to Mr. Perot, you can do that in the community section. Just click there and make a post and make it live. Just be aware that whatever you're posting is going to be public, so that anybody can come in and read it. So please keep it G-rated. And if you have personal questions, please keep those in the personal private inbox, so that we don't have your private business shouted out all over the internet. Nobody wants that. One must join the site as a patron to use these services. We have not continued our free site at naosno.org. We have shifted that entire site over to Patreon. And the reason we have done this is because we need to have a place that is not controlled by any one tribal entity, but it is accessible to all members of all the different bands. And this is, it gives us the ability to work and create freely. It gives my husband the ability to speak freely, but it also protects him, and it protects his work. There are copyrights on this page. Patreon will assist people who find that people have taken their work and used it somewhere else. That is part of the Patreon process, because they support artists and educators, musicians. If someone takes somebody else's work and tries to claim it as their own, Patreon will help that person, and to show and prove that they had this idea or this project first. And that is something that helps my husband to protect himself. It protects the language. It protects the language from anybody who would try to come in and make money off of it when they have no vested interest in it. This actually happened once. I want to say it was about 2012. Somebody figured out how to take a robot on the internet and grab words from different languages, and created about 100 different dictionaries and started selling them on Amazon. And my husband called him out on it. The Maori Nation called him out on it. Several other nations called him out on it. And I think about 10 of those dictionaries are now banned on Amazon because of what he did. He had no vested interest in any of these tribal groups. He just grabbed all their language and started making money off of it. And Amazon shut him down wherever there was a complaint. And that's the key, wherever there was a complaint. So the Potawatomi one, we complained about it and it was shut down. So this Patreon format protects us, and it protects the language, and it protects the nation, so that this language belongs to the nation. But Mr. Perot's thoughts belong to Mr. Perot. So let's clarify that. The nation owns the language, but my husband owns his thoughts, no matter what language they are in. So be aware of intellectual property rights and just ask. Just always ask before you download anything. Always ask before you use something. Um, I think that's about all we had wanted to say about the Patreon site. We wanted to make sure that you knew how to use it. If you're watching this live stream right now, then you figured out how to watch the live streams. But if you're watching this as a recording, then be aware that when we do a live stream, we will post on Patreon that the live stream is starting. And then you need to press play. If for some reason it says restricted mode, then you need to undo the restricted mode on your YouTube on your computer, because restricted mode comes from YouTube. That's the funnel that we're using to broadcast. And when we broadcast using that, you have on your screen permissions. That's on your screen. So if you have your YouTube set to restricted mode, you need to turn that off. Also, once we go live, you can make comments in the Patreon, but we will not see them live in the Patreon. If you want to post a live comment, and so he can see it, because he can see it right here on his screen, you have to open that in YouTube. So if you're on Patreon and the live screen comes up and you push play and it's playing, down in the bottom there's a word. It says YouTube. It's just a big word, YouTube. You click on that word and it opens it up in a new window on YouTube, and then you can post a comment there and he'll see it. So please feel free to do that if you are watching it live. And if it's not live, if you're watching this as a recording, then any comments that you make, just make them right there on the Patreon page, or just send them a private message. And that's how the live streaming kind of works. So apart from that, I think that's all that we had this morning. I want to thank everyone who was...
Yeah. Supposed to go 15 minutes.
Yep. I want to thank everyone who has signed up to be a patron.
You're supposed to go half an hour.
Oh.
Yes. A full half an hour is what I told them.
Oh, I did not know that. I thought it was 15 minutes. Here I'm trying to cut myself short. Okay. Well then. Then let's just talk about the importance of... Okay. Then I'd just like to talk about the importance of language acquisition and the importance of the work that my husband is doing. He has been working literally his entire life. When he was a young man, he would go to different places, and he was raised in kind of a transition period, whereas he would go to different powwows and different gatherings here and there, he would encounter native people who could not speak their language. And being raised in a community where he was surrounded with native languages, where there was hardly any English spoken at all, and then to suddenly find native people who could not understand him was quite a shock. And so ever since then, he's been trying to teach people their language.
I was only about 11 or 12 years old when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So I started actually teaching when I was about 12.
Yeah.
You can comment on that.
Yes. So he started teaching as a young man, 12, 13 years old. He would start to teach people that he would meet who didn't know their language. Well, this is what I said. Well, this is what I meant. And this is how you say this. And this is how you say that. And he became well known in the communities in Wisconsin, Michigan. And then as he grew, he went into the Navy and came back from the Navy and continued to teach his language. He has been well known down in the Citizen Band country, Prairie Band country. He has spent time on the Prairie Band reservation and also time outside the reservation there teaching with his aunt.
With the Citizen Potawatomi in 1976.
Okay.
I can sit down if you
Sure.
want me to.
Yeah. Best to come from the mouth.
Oh, good morning. Good morning. I wanted to kind of chat with some of you for a little while. I told my wife we're supposed to be on for half an hour. Yeah, that was quite a revelation to me when I kind of a little bit of a culture shock. Like you come into a community where you're raised in a community, rather, I'm sorry. That's all you used was Potawatomi, Menominee, Ojibwe. Some folks spoke Winnebago as well. But mostly the primary language was Anishinaabe. Anishinaabe Amyak. B'nai Anishinaabe Amyak. Begwendek na in endem yak. Ishpenegi doyak. Inok negayak. Begwendek na. Yeah, ayo yak now with the wad me moon. By way of expressing ourselves, this is the one language that we used within the Schnabem one, in the Schnabem yak. Yeah, Ajitskayak ayo yak. So that's what we used to in order to speak to each other. And that's the way I was raised. So when I went out several times with my grandpa and my uncles to different places, I was surprised when I saw Indian people. I would go over and talk to them, and just a handful of people understood what I was trying to say. And that was really kind of a culture shock to me to learn that. And I came back and told my grandpa, I run into some Indians. They didn't understand what I was saying. We couldn't get insist to watch. No, what you get doing? Oh, that no, mom kada man no. Well, this memoirs it. So we got no, yo, what's now this one? So that's what I said. I was really amazed to find out that many people did not even use this language. They were already using English. And back then, I was 12 years old. So that was quite a long time ago. I was born in 1939, so 12 years added to that would be about 1951 in the 50s. So I asked him, what should I do? Teach them, he said. Teach them. So that's what I started doing. And then I actually organized a teaching session in Vesper, Wisconsin, in Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin, in the Wood County area when I was 17 and 18, just before I went into the Navy, because I found that a lot of people could not understand many of the speakers in our drum services and in our midday services. They couldn't understand what the elders were saying. They'd be, what did he say? Can you tell me what he said? You know? And I found myself having to translate many times for what the elders were saying. So when the elders found out I was doing that, they asked me to come up and start talking. So I've been I joined Midday when I was 16, but I wasn't used as a speaker until they found this out. So they started using me as a speaker then. So my grandma one time before she passed away, and also my aunt Blanche, who knew all this, told a group of people in Kansas one time, this man has been an elder, has been a grandfather, an elder since he was 16. People used to call him grandfather when he was 16 years of age because he would be asked to get up and stand up, and when the elders would see him trying to translate to a group of people what the elders were trying to say up here, their teachings. Hey, Pianjroda, Nibunjroda, Ankonotaga Injna, Ejishkain. They would tell him that. Come over here, stand here, and translate for these people what's been said. So here, all of a sudden, I found myself standing, talking, and that's what my aunt Blanche, told a group of people in Kansas one time. So whenever I go down to Kansas, they would always have me stand and speak, just like the elders. The elders would be given the first chance, but then I would always be asked, "Do you have something you'd like to say?" So I would stand and I'd say what what I was impressed to say by the Spirit. So this language is an ever-changing thing, and if you are interested in studying, now there's a catchy word, study. I was asked to translate that one time by someone that was Ojibwe. how do you Potawatomi say study? Because a lot of people, they say, I'm studying my language. And what they're doing really is they're reading it. Reading it is not studying it. And I presented a paper written by Rudy Yudovich, a Hebrew teacher. And I had presented that the other day and talked about how she viewed teaching and how the best way to learn the language, to keep repeating things and constantly try to speak without any spaces. And I got I have to say this, it's humorous. I got a kick out of Gail Kimes, and she's in here today. She went on. She had a class with my wife the next morning, and she tried to imitate and she really made a mistake trying to say something because it's not that easy, Gail. You have to keep at it. You have to keep at it all the time. I remember when I first met my wife, she knew a few Ojibwe Potawatomi words, but she was saying them all wrong. So I would constantly correct her. And this was back in 2002, in around April or May, somewhere in there. I took a trip down to Crown Point, Indiana, for some business that I was called upon to do. And in the process, I met her, and since that time, we became friends, and eventually we married. In November 13th of 2002, we got married. And then so her education as a Anishinaabe began from that point on. When she met my mother and she saw how my mother and I talked Anishinaabe all the time, but she wanted to learn that whole language. And now at 41, back then she was only about 25 or 26, I guess, but she learned the language well enough to be able to teach it, and she really knows theoretically this language, but not only theoretically, she can speak it. There are a lot of people that know this language theoretically and can't speak it because they sound like they have all kinds of strange accents and they don't sound Anishinaabe. When a Anishinaabe is talking, he's been he don't know Anishinaabe. Yeah, he no it dogs it's no. Yeah, he was in dogette. He dogs a what? We he's been a nuish mo at gan Anishinaabe. So if another Anishinaabe meets a different Anishinaabe, he listens to what he's saying. And based on what he is accustomed to hearing, that tells him whether this person is fluent or not. And that's what I mean when I say a lot of people speak with strange accent. Like it's like a person who is deaf and has never learned English, never heard English properly, and they learn to speak English. They speak it with a strange accent. They speak English with a strange. Well, that's the way a lot of people are speaking Potawatomi today. And you're not going to get the fluent accent until you keep practicing and practicing and practicing. You have to literally train your mouth and your mind to cooperate with each other. Because what you're thinking up here often doesn't come out of here the right way. So you have to match the two. And that comes through a lot of practice and hard work. Some people don't realize it takes time to hear, to speak a language correctly. You have to hear it correctly and then speak it correctly. Or just Shishmoan, Ishpanegi Doyan, Goji Naishayan, Snigget, Snaoda. It's hard to learn this language in the correct way. If you go somewhere and you're going to try to say something, it's hard. Now, Keoda, for example, oh, bonjour, Guinois, Jahek Guinois, Nijnishnavek. Ni kanak chaek kinwa. Nin sim nas no, ye is nukas yan. Pudewa mi morinanda. Skoden ni, eyao yan. Ibasna, we shot them get in ben dogs yan. Skoden ni is nukas wat. Gewin wa. Ye. Na, ebi I answered. Eki doyan no mok. En endem yan. Na ik kendem yan. Chaek wat de kendas wen, hey. Nit wen daek. Hey kendas yek. Ye. Eki doyan no mok. Ekadyan. So I gave you an example of what it's like to stand and speak as a Potawatomi. So I introduced myself and I told people who I am, what I am, where I come from, where I'm enrolled. I didn't say where I live. I could say that also. Wododan S. Waban, Waupun, Wisconsin. Nakadek Wododan S. Monek with a Chimok Monek, and make cherry wat. Je doat one order. Da wat goede. Boek de wat nodig. Hitchkeon. Nee. What? So this is a prison town. There are probably 5 prisons in the area that we live in, with 2 prisons, one prison just a block away and another prison 3 blocks away. It's a very safe place to live, believe me, because the police really keep this place well patrolled because it is a prison town. But there are a lot of white people that live here that work in the prison system. And I myself was a police officer and a probation and parole agent. Some of the things I used to do most of my life, as well as truck driving. Whenever I wasn't working, I would always drive trucks. So I was always busy doing something. Yeah, he's not a Monsian. In Nadzawun is Nukadek. In Nadzawun is how we say it, a way of life. It's a behavioral way of life. Madzawun is life. But when I say, Yegin Nadzian, so that was my way of life, is what I said to you. A lot of people can't say those kinds of things. My wife pointed out that there are a lot of Potawatomis today. They know Potawatomi, but when you get them into a spiritual setting, like say, for example, if they go into Meday or teaching somewhere, they don't know how to express themselves because the language they're learning is not a spiritual language. A spiritual language is a lot different. And I believe if Chris is in here this morning, I told you about a place in Athens, Michigan, the Huron Potawatomi. They are the people who live along the river and hear the sounds of the river. That's what I just said to you. And they have ceremonies, spring and summer. The main ones you should attend are the spring and fall. And the fall ceremonies are coming up. And if you would like to attend, I would welcome you as my guest because I'm probably going to be asked to come and speak to them. And you had said you'd like to travel, you and your sons or whoever. And if you want to, contact me and I'll put you in touch with them. I had given you that invitation. And I had also written to you about names and whatever else you might want to do. I'm your boy. I'm your man if you want to do that. I can share with you and introduce you to the proper people so that you will be properly taught and you will know the correct ways of the Nishnabek, the Potawatomis especially. I'm willing to do that for anybody if I sense that they are sincere. Uh-huh. I notice we're just about out of time here, but I wanted to kind of talk a little bit like that to you. Yay, Gajer Madzian. Oh, Benesh no Egi Penojet Wian. Egi Kanot Magawat. Go to Keki Hajak. Yagi Blindagayan. Wigwan Dixnagi could what go to Keki Hajak. Ye in Gomes na Emi Quendaman. Ye in Gomes na a piece nog the Wendam yan. So when I was a kid, I listened to my elders all the time. And today I think about those things. I remember those things, and I think very deeply. Enagdewendemion means I think very deeply on many of those teachings, on many of those things. So that's what is my life as a Nishnabé. It gives me meaning, has a lot of meaning for me in my deep in my soul. All the things that I learned. Yeah, ngom wajakadyan nomok. So I want to wish all of you a happy weekend. We here are going to eat together after a while as a little small community, my family and our friend Gail. And Gail's leaving for Arizona next Friday to rejoin her family. So we are going to fellowship with her today and honor her in that way. And as Anishinaabeg people, we are going to do that. Aha. So I'll let you know when we're going to do another broadcast. Periodically, I will do this, probably once or twice a week. And keep checking back on the site because we're loading things every day. As my wife said, there's over 105 things on there now, and we're slowly building this archival site. And eventually, it's going to be the biggest one. I know it will.